Hey, hello, hi. Welcome to and back to the EquiTheory podcast. I am your host, Jill Treese, and on this week's episode, we are going to get into a lot of things. Some things that I have been wanting to talk about, haven't had the chance to, or the inspo to, and some things that I've been avoiding, potentially. We'll see what happens. We'll see what comes up. But yeah, let's get into it. Okay, you guys know the drill. Before we get into it, we do have to do ads, and the spoken ad I would like to say is if you would like to ask a training, behavior, and or general question for the premium feed episodes, you may do so now by becoming a subscriber down below. If you're listening on Spotify, you can subscribe on Spotify in app, and then there will be a form that you can fill out and send, or you can become a member through Supercast. That link will be in the description. But beyond that, let's roll the other ads. Okay, we're back. So this episode, I have a strong feeling will be all over the place because I am feeling a little bit chaotic today. But last week, didn't have an episode. Why, you ask? Why did that happen? Because I'm a little all over the place lately. That's why. So basically, life has been completely absorbed. My life has been completely absorbed by preparing for the National Counselor examination. I am taking it, I believe, next week or so. And that's a really, really big test. I think there's 400 something questions. It's like a 4-hour test, and it is intense. And I don't have to take it yet, actually. But it has no bearing on becoming a licensed associate counselor, but it does for a licensed professional counselor. But I can take it now while all the information that I learned in school is semi-fresh because it's over counseling history and all that. So basically I'm having to go back and learn reliability and validity and who did the Beaubie doll experiment. Hint, Albert Bandura. Albert? I think oh God, now I'm second guessing myself. Anyway, I know his last name's Bandura for sure. But anyway, so I have been trying to study and fighting the overwhelming desire to procrastinate that because I so much prefer to cram. But the book I'm reading is the Encyclopedia of Counseling by Howard Rosenthal. Apparently it's the Bible for the NCE test prep. And so I've been reading that, and it's a 500-page book, and I've been trying to burn through it, and it's taken a long time, and I also will find any excuse to not do it. I just, oh my God, don't want to. Never been a good studier. It's something that I'm working on. But I love studying things that I'm really interested in and I care about. I love researching and looking into stuff, but as far as studying stuff that is required, not so much. Plus, it's stuff that doesn't matter. If I'm going to use psychometric testing regularly, then yeah, I should know about assessment stuff. But do I really need to know all the nitty gritty details of it if I'm not going to be an assessment giver? Maybe not. And I'm going to forget it. And when I do administer assessments, I'm going to refresh and research. I don't get it. But anyway, there has to be some standardization. I understand that. So that's where we're at. And forgive the rant. But yeah, basically last week, in the time slots that I set aside sometimes to record, I was studying and I was I just really can't focus on the podcast right now. I've got to study. I'm so stressed about this test. And, I don't have testing anxiety or anything like that, but it was I can either spend 4 hours, recording the podcast and getting it up and, doing the art for it and posting about it. And I can spend 4 hours doing all of that, or I can simply study. And if studying felt right, so I decided to just go with that. So apologies for skipping last week. I am genuinely sorry, but also in all of the surveys that I've asked you guys, there have always been this please don't record an episode if you're not into it because we can tell and it's not good. So the problem is then sometimes like I'm such a schedule, like schedule-y needing person. I really struggle when there's not a clear do this X, Y, and Z every day or every Monday, whatever. So if I'm not recording episodes on a schedule, then I may never post another one, which has always been my fear with everybody saying like, you don't have to post every week, do what feels right. Just post when you feel like posting an episode. But that just hasn't been what's happening. And I really think it's sad because like I've said in the past couple of episodes, like I feel like it's been a coming to terms with that this might be the last hurrah of the podcast as it stands. Just because I'm not sure how much longer I can really keep it up feasibly. And I have just reached a point in my life, like when I was in high school and middle school and stuff, I used to love to have all of these different projects and all these different tabs open. But the older I get, the more I'm like, maybe my worth isn't really based around how much productivity I have and like how much energy output, all of the things. Like maybe I can just relax and that's okay and enjoy life. Maybe I can have a day where I don't produce anything and I just live and do what feels right for me, maybe. So in coming to terms with that, the desire to be producing and having 8 million projects is just slowed a lot. And the more I am in the therapy world and am practicing that, the more I really feel like it deserves my focus, because it really does just require so much attention, and I'm really fascinated by it, and I like researching. I've got a bunch of ideas for it. I'm excited for the next couple of phases of life with it, really, because it's, like right now I'm hopefully graduating this fall. That was the other thing that really threw me off this week, is that my school was like, oh yeah, we don't have your like candidacy plan. The graduation application's due this week. And if you don't apply, then you're not graduating, and it will be like next May before you get your stuff. So, you need to make sure your application's in, but then they were like, we lost your candidacy plan and you have to have that to apply and for graduation. And so it has just been a nightmare. And then they like during the middle of my graduate program, my school got bought out by another school. So they changed over all the software and stuff. So there was some like confusion over whether I had missed a class or not. And it was really just like had me in kind of a tailspin trying to like prepare for the test and also like sort out all this like paperwork for my graduation. So it has been a bit of a stressful time, but as I was saying, hopefully I'll be graduating in December if all that gets sorted. And then fingers crossed, depending on the licensing powers that be, should be able to have my LAC, which is Licensed Associate Counselor. And again, apologies everyone listening that's not interested in becoming a therapist. But I mean, everybody always is like, that responds when I'm like, what do you want me to talk about? Is always like, what's going on in your life? And I know several of you that listen are interested in becoming therapists, so I feel like I might as well explain it. Anyway, so I'm like gonna be applying for LAC. It takes forever to get your license, but once I have an LAC, then I can apply for jobs working as a therapist, because like when you're under the intern umbrella, you can sort of work anywhere, but then after that, it's like you have to have your license to practice, which makes sense. And hopefully I'll be continuing on that route and getting that license, and then it'll be like 3,000 hours of direct client contact, so 3,000 hours of therapy before I can be an LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor. And so then I'll be unconditionally licensed and moving into like, hopefully, moving into private practice, because right now I'm working community, and there are pros and cons to both. But you do have a little bit more freedom with private practice, but it's also more time consuming because you're like in charge of everything. So it can be a lot, but yeah, so we shall see how this journey unfolds, but getting those 3,000 direct client hours is going to be like 2 to 3 years of head down, working 8 hours a day, seeing clients 8 hours a day. And I really don't think, especially because it's not even just seeing clients, it's the notes that go with it and having to make sure that everything is insurance company audit worthy, that your notes would pass an audit, and there's a lot of paperwork that goes into it as well to stay on top of, covering your back, the agency's back, and the client, making sure they are able to get care. And so, yeah, it is a lot. But it's just one of those things that I really do enjoy it, and it is going to require a lot of my attention, and I don't want to be giving half to either, trying to keep up the podcast and give it half effort. And then, yeah, so I think this might be the last hurrah. So I'm sort of focused on sticking it out through the end of the year and, enjoying it as it comes to its natural close. But I mean, I don't even know how long I've been doing the podcast, like 3 years probably. And I feel like I have really given a lot to it and I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, I don't know. It seems weird to like not do it, but I'm definitely going to hang on to my equipment because who knows, I might branch into a therapy podcast. I don't know. Or I may start back up with horses once life settles down again. I don't know, but I know that I love podcasting. So keep an eye out. Don't unfollow. But yeah, what else? So other things, random updates. I cut my hair off, which is a huge deal. It's just one of those like irrelevant things that probably nobody cares about. But if you've been following me for a long time, my hair has almost always been at least to my like mid back, and I cut it off at my shoulders. Just because the lob is in, baby. Like everybody's got a long bob, and I was like, give it to me. I want that. I hate it. Sensory issues, overload. My hair touching my shoulders. Are you kidding? It's the worst, but it is cute. And I like that it's something different. And I turned 25 not too long ago. And so I was like, oh, this is what happens, right? You just cut all your hair off when you're an adult. But realistically, probably going to grow it back out. Though my neck is enjoying the break from the weight. But yeah, so those are fun things. Also in the realm of like personal care, health, and beauty, my skin has cleared up so much. Oh my. It has been quite a journey. Like at one point it was so cystic and so inflamed, and now it is so much better. And I mean, I don't even remember when I got off birth control. I think it's been 2 years now. COVID really like did my head in as far as time warp goes. But yeah, that was a very struggle bus time. And I know like acne may not seem like the biggest issue in the world, but especially for somebody that was very used to being in front of a camera and like my face is my instrument, like that was a big part of the reason why it was so hard for me to do the filming on the podcast and like do the video as well, because it was a whole process. I had to put on makeup every time because I was like, I am not confident in my face. And now I have lots of acne scars, but I don't have like big open wounds on my face anymore. But yeah, I mean, the scars I'm fine with. It was just the open gaping wounds that like made me, I feel like I held out for a really long time with being like, it's just acne, it'll pass, it's not that big a deal, it doesn't define you, all the things. And then eventually, like after a year and a half, I mean, I was like regularly having some breakdown cries about it because it was like, it just felt like it was never going to go away, it was never going to end. And I couldn't get it to a point where, I was comfortable and confident with my skin. And it was also really frustrating to feel like anytime I wanted to leave the house, I needed to put makeup on because I just didn't feel good about it. And, I don't know. I mean, that's a societal issue too, that like you can't like live and deal with issues and be a woman and not have an attractive put together persona or exterior. But I don't know. For me, I was like, I don't really want to deal with the psychological issues of it personally. I'm just going to put on makeup and chug through. But anywho, yeah, so it's gotten a lot better, and I would love to give a step-by-step of how I fixed it. But really, I think it was just being on hormonal birth control pills, since I was 16 years old. And I think I got off when I was 23, maybe 24, something like that. 25 now. So, had to be 22 or 23. It was right around my birthday, I think just right before my birthday. So maybe 2021. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So it like all the books I read said, post-pill acne, like after you get off the birth control pill, your acne will peak at 6 months, and then it'll start. And like just when you're ready to give up, it'll start to abate and not be so intense anymore. And that is not what happened for me. It just continued. It was so bad. And I had I've taken progress pictures, and maybe that's what I'll do. I'll just make a little progress video, and like a slideshow-y thing, and put it on the site so you can see that it just was really hard for a while. And I went to dermatologists, and they were like, you need to get on Accutane. And I was like, I sincerely asked one of my dermatologists, okay, I'm not comfortable with Accutane. I have heard horrible things about it. Every time I've looked into it, it's like, everything says like it's baby chemo and it's really, really aggressive and hard on your body. And, I was like, my acne is really bad, but it's not, the people that I see get on Accutane have far worse than what I dealt with. And I was like, I just can't justify it. And I would talk to my doctor and be like, are you sure there's no way I can change it from a nutritional standpoint? Am I deficient in something? Is it a hormonal imbalance? And she was like, no, you just need to get on Accutane. And I was like, pass. So, really just waited it out. And she straight up told me, she was like, the only way, acne is genetic. The only way to get rid of it is to get on Accutane. And I was like, I just refuse to believe that's true, and did my own digging. And maybe there was some level of confirmation bias involved, only turning to sources that told me that I could do it. But I was like, I'm more willing to try that than the ones that are you need to try these really aggressive treatment forms, where you're ripping into your skin or harming your body from the inside out. And that was my issue with Accutane, is that it has a really drying property to it, apparently. And I have eczema really bad, and I stopped taking cortisone shots every year. I used to get them biannually, and they give you a shot in your hip, butt cheek area. And the shot atrophied my butt cheek. And so it looked like somebody took a melon baller and scooped out a part of my cheek. And I went to the doctor, and they were like, ooh, yeah, that's not good. Sometimes, you have those reactions. And I was like, something that will literally atrophy my muscle at the site that it goes into doesn't feel good. That's my tiny pea brain thoughts. I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice by any means, but this was my thought process as to why I chose to do what I did. So please don't take my advice at face value. Definitely do your own due diligence. But, I was like, if it's going to atrophy my butt cheek, maybe we take an alternative explanation. Now, granted, the alternatives are very difficult in that it's eat anti-inflammatory, but, nobody seems to really have a concise, clear answer on what eczema is. But I mean, my armpits on the front and on the back of my armpit, in my elbow crease, and all over the top of my hand, and then it moved to the front of my wrist, was just really dry, painful skin, really awful. Sorry, this is a medical episode, but this is where I'm at. And this is what I've been dealing with and focused on for the past 2 years, really. But yeah, so it was just really intense, painful, itchy, dry, scaly skin, and couldn't get rid of it to save my life. And I still really haven't put a this is what fixed it. And it's still not all the way fixed, but it's significantly better. It would always get worse when I sweat. And I looked it up, and apparently there is a phenomena, right? Where when you sweat, there's this bacteria that's produced that you can actually become allergic to. So you are literally allergic to your own sweat. And I'm not sure if that's what was happening for me, or if like the salt from my sweat and then it evaporating was like drying out parts of my skin barrier that were maybe damaged from scratching it. I don't know, but I have lots of theories, but no like actual answers. So, but yeah, I was like, I don't want to do the cortisone shots anymore, because it just feels like that maybe is not the best route. It feels more like maybe a shortcut and maybe a Band-Aid for some more systemic issues that I'm dealing with, because my diet's been horrible my whole life, like just chicken tenders and SpaghettiOs. So I started really researching more about, eating to address some of these issues. And I'll be 100% straight up. I have not been great about my diet, but for the most part, I do try to eat gluten-free, because I have a lot of the symptoms of, potential gluten sensitivity. And I know that is a scoffable thing. I don't think I have celiac. I had a doctor bring it up once, but it seems a lot more intense than what I deal with. But the like non-diagnosed, like non-clinical level gluten sensitivity, and that like, I think there are like 4 inflammatory food types, which is like wheat, gluten, dairy, alcohol, and sugar. And so really trying to resolve those areas, switching mostly to almond milk, and like non-dairy dairy, but then that also gets sketchy, because then it's like, what is the alternative? And I know like goat and I think Jersey milk or goat cheese is still, or is preferable to like cow dairy because of A1 casein, which I think is an enzyme, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so just trying to sort of steer away from that. I've never been a big drinker anyway, but really just sort of cutting that out of my life entirely. I mean, like every now and again, but I don't really like alcohol anyway. So it's just staying away from a lot of things like that, trying to reduce my sugar intake, particularly like the refined sugars, which have not been good at. But, just making those little lifestyle changes, and then supplementing differently. And I got a lot of guidance out of reading several different books. The Period Repair Manual by Laura Brydon is a really, really technical book, but it is literally a manual for everything you need to know about the menstrual cycle and how your body literally works from the endocrine system, and how to, like, if you're having this issue, this is the thing that you need to have a look at. This is the education you should have had in, like middle, high school biology about how your body works, rather than just like, the usual don't have sex and you'll bleed once a month. And also, like, what else? Like periods suck and they're destined to be painful forever. So reading that was really, really helpful and insightful. And also, I think I've talked about it before, but Alyssa Vitti's books, Woman Code and In the Flow. I think Woman Code is like step 1, but I read In the Flow first, and I think that's the largely more helpful book. But basically, and I don't know, I feel like a lot of people have seen it on TikTok. That's where I saw it for the first time. But basically, it's about how your hormonal changes in, your body change throughout the month, as like when you're in the follicular, the ovulatory, the menstrual and luteal phase, how your hormone levels are during those phases, what your metabolism's like, and as a result, like when is the best time to do certain things. So like in the first half of your cycle, your metabolism is really slow. And so that's the ideal time to like really hit it with cardio. So in the follicular and ovulatory phase, do a lot of cardio and strength training. And then as you shift to luteal and menstrual, your metabolism speeds up. So if you keep working out at a really high intensity, then you're going to go into fat saving mode, energy conservation, because your body's like, oh, we're starving. It's actually time to not do that. So we will not be losing weight. So I thought that was really insightful, because I've seen so many women in my life struggle, and I know that they're working out as hard as possible and as often as possible and just not seeing any changes. And it's really frustrating, but that's largely due to a lot of exercise information, and studies are done on men because they're easier to study. They have a 24-hour cycle, whereas people with female reproductive system, it tends to be the 28-day cycle, where you go through all of those phases of the menstrual cycle. And so your body changes, and it's really hard to study that sometimes, but it's more expensive to study that, I should say. But to know that that's like how your metabolism works is insightful. So it's more productive to rest during your menstrual cycle than to like feel guilty and be like, I need to be working out, I need to be pushing. So little things like that. And then also the foods to eat and how they interact with your body system, your hormones, your neurotransmitters, and all of that. And like knowing what's in the foods. Cause people say like, eat celery to boost X. And it's like, okay, but sure, where did that come from? But to know like, and obviously it's one source, right? I can only do so much reading about the menstrual cycle. All right. So I'm not 100% sure how accurate everything is. Okay. So take it with a grain of salt, but this is what I have read and what I've learned that has helped me. And so, but to read about like what foods do in your body and how they interact with your endocrine system and how they support different hormones, because they're changing throughout that 28-day cycle. And to know when to expect what moods, and if you get super moody, how to abate that. If you get super crampy, how to abate that. And also, like, I did all of this not because of any of those things, but strictly for fixing my acne and trying to figure out how to balance my hormones better. And a lot of that involved sleeping better, eating in an anti-inflammatory way, and mostly sleeping and reducing my stress. So got really good about my sleep cycle, reducing my stress levels, and sort of the final thing I think was supplementing different things. And the Laura Brydon book and Alyssa Vitti books really helped a lot with me figuring out what I might need to supplement with for my body. And I know a lot of people have different takes on different supplements, and I'm not sure how much I believe in it, but it makes sense to me. So I'm trying it, and I've seen the results. So I didn't, test the variables properly per se, but yeah, so I'm kind of like, now I don't know what I can cut out and what I have to keep doing, but whatever. So yeah, there's been a lot of that going on. So that was 30 minutes of Jill's health update, but yeah, I don't know. And I know that may not seem like super important to a lot of people, but this has been a really long process for me and a huge journey. And so to see the changes finally starting to happen is like the most rewarding and like breath of fresh air, a sigh of relief, if you will, thing that I've encountered in a very long time. So, yeah, I don't know. That's where we're at. Also something else that I don't know that I've noted, subject whiplash on you here just because I'm staring at it. If you've never heard of Obsidian as a note-taking app, you should definitely check it out. If you are somebody who is a little bit neurotic, Obsidian is fantastic. It has changed my life in terms of how I store and take notes. And this isn't sponsored. I'm just literally staring at it and I love it so much. And me and my partner both got like super obsessed with it there for a little while. And now I just like keep my whole life in it. So if you're techie, it's definitely for you because it does involve like a moderate level of coding. But like if I can do it, you can do it because I am by no means a coding connoisseur. But yeah, also part of this is me avoiding the next topic that I do feel like I need to talk about, but haven't really been super wanting to, because I'm not all the way sure how to do it justice, but yeah. Okay. So let's just do it. So trigger warning, death, but God, I just don't even know how to get into it without, like, I don't know. It's such a bumpy subject change, but there's really no good way to segue into it, especially from what I was just talking about. But, so I don't even remember when it was. Honestly, I kind of like just sidestepped the whole thing, but, I think it was a couple months ago, I got a message from the previous owner of the horse I owned before Zoe, which I'm not sure how many podcast listeners have been following me that long, but if you have, you remember Beau. And God, I don't even remember the timeline. I want to say, when did I get Zoe? I think I got her in 2016, 17, something like that. Because I got Beau in 2014. I think I had him 4 years. So 2018. I think that's when I got Zoe. It's 2018 or 20. I think it was 20. Really? Might have been, I don't know. One of those years. And so I had Beau for like 4 years. Our journey was very bumpy at first. And yeah, I got a text from his owner that he suddenly got really sick, and they did everything they could, and he ended up having to be euthanized. I'm not sure all the way the specifics, and that's not super something that I'm like really keen to inquire about, because it just is what it is. But yeah, so the people that owned him were wonderful to him and loved him. He was not always the easiest horse to be around and to deal with. He would bite a lot, and he was not like a super big cuddler all the time. And he really was just difficult. And a lot of that was the fault of the people that had him before me. And I certainly didn't help with the situation. I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. And the family that owned him just adored him and took such good care of him. And I really couldn't imagine like a better place for him to go. It was really, because selling Beau was really, really hard. And it was one of those things that I'm still very much in the competitive mindset. And I was like, Zoe's my level up horse, and this is what you do. It's a part of the business. You know, if you want to go pro in this industry, kid, you gotta toughen up. And, I think if I hadn't been so in that world, I don't think I ever would have sold Beau, because I really did love that horse, and he was so special to me. And part of me wishes I hadn't, but then, he never would have gotten to be in Megan's life, who owned him. And like, he really was just such a special horse that, like I said, he was hard to be around, but I think he was one of my best teachers, because like the horse I had before him, Dragonfly, was, I've talked about it on the pod, maybe not on the podcast, but I definitely have a YouTube video like talking about all my past horses. And Dragonfly was just the best. He's still alive and still local, I think. I haven't seen him, but one of the girls that I used to ride with, I think he's at her family's place. And we actually have the same farrier. So my farrier gives me updates on him, which is sweet. But yeah, he was just the best ever. Like, he was so good. And he did not challenge me at all. He was very much a teacher. He was very patient and very kind. And he just really gave me his all. And I competed him through training level, from like being terrified to jump all the way up through training level. Like, he was so solid and so special. And, looking back on these horses, it makes me so sad that like I was ever in this headspace where I was like, yeah, you have to sell them, obviously. And, I'm a butterfly effect person. And I think that if I had never sold Dragonfly, if I'd never sold Beau, I would have never owned Zoe, and we never would have dealt with her colic. I never would have fallen into positive reinforcement and done the work that I did as a result of that, and may not have led me to Azula. I mean, you never know. And maybe all of that was destiny, and regardless of whether I had sold them or not, it would have happened. But I don't know. I don't know how wise it is or how useful it is to entertain all the what ifs, but yeah, I am really grateful for the time I had with Beau, because he was such a special horse for me. And I don't know, it just feels right to sort of talk about his story. So, yeah, when I was trying to sell Dragonfly, we had taken him to Georgia and dropped him at, this dressage trainer that I often rode with named Cindy Thaxton. She had a student that was interested in trying Dragonfly. They wanted to try him out for a week. And since we knew Cindy and loved her and knew she was like super reputable, would take care of her horses, we were like, absolutely, just let us know. And we were like, pretty sure this lady was going to buy Dragonfly. So we were like, well, my trainer at the time happened to be down in Florida horse shopping for another client of hers. So we were like, it's only 5 hours, so let's just drive on down. It was 4 or 5, something like that. So we already had the trailer from bringing Dragonfly. So we were like, well, we might as well. So we drove down to Florida, and long story short, tried a bunch of horses. And I remember trying Beau, and he had staples in his forehead from cutting it open on a horse trailer. And I was like already not super about that. And he had sores on his ankles from flies. They're called summer sores. But yeah, he was a little busted. And so I got on him, and I was immediately terrified of him. I was a very timid rider at this point. Like, I was very comfortable on Dragonfly, but not like super comfortable on other horses. And he scared me quite a bit. I did not enjoy riding him. And I, pointed him at a couple fences, and he refused. I am 100% sure, because I was not confident and I was scared of him. And so he was like, I don't know that you really want to jump that. So I actually asked to get off of him, and I was like, I know this is not the one. I don't want him. And they were like, okay, whatever. And so we said goodbye to Hearthrob, was his name. And then we were evaluating the other choices. And so one of them, his name was Walla Walla Bing Bang. Shout out if you know him. He was super cool. I really loved him, but they were afraid he was going to max out at like training prelim level, I think, at the time. I don't know. I don't know what he's doing now, so I have no idea if that was true or not. But we kind of got the sense that maybe he was not going to be an upper level horse, which is what I was shopping for at the time, which is ironic because Beau was not an upper level horse. But then I got on this other horse named Mo, and the lady that was selling him was really sort of pushing him, and he was super, super cool. But and I liked him. I thought he was cool. I felt comfortable on him, and I jumped him. I was like, this is the one. They told us he was 13, and we vetted him, and the vet was like, this horse is like 18. And we were like, ooh, no. Because, again, in the culture at the time, it was like, I need a young horse with a lot of talent so that I can have room to move up and get more competitive and yada, yada, yada. So I was left with a couple options: either buy the older horse, go home with no horse, or reevaluate the ones that I didn't like. And so naturally, I was like, I'm not going home without a horse, because I was 14 and I was like, I have to have a horse. And so I was like, I'll take Beau. And my dad and the horse shopper lady was like, what? Like, their jaws hit the floor. They were like, you were scared of him. And I was like, I'll get comfortable. It'll be fine. And they were like, are you sure you don't just want to go home without a horse? And I was like, no, I really like him. And they were like, Jill, you didn't like him at all. You got off of him and did not want to like jump him. You were scared of him. And I was like, yeah, I'll get over it. It'll be fine. And so I don't know why on earth anyone agreed to this, but we ended up taking Beau home, and I rode him, I think, for maybe 6 months. And then we started having all these issues. We would be approaching fences like to jump, and all of a sudden he would just start going sideways like really, really fast. And I couldn't make him stop. I couldn't get him to turn. Like he would just like lock into this sideways thing. And I had 2 trainers at the time, and I just remember both of them being like, you know, he's being disobedient. He doesn't want to jump. And me and my dad, I don't know what was up with the intuition with this one, but both of me and my dad were like, that's not what's happening. Like they're wrong. And my dad's like not a horse person. I don't know where that came from, but both of us were just like, no, there's something else up here. And we had the vet out, and at this point, Beau had started having an abscess, and it just like wouldn't go away. And my vet x-rayed him. Long story short, we found out there was a keratoma, and we ended up scheduling and taking him to Oklahoma for surgery. Had this keratoma removed, which now I'm pretty sure they don't have to have like full-blown surgery for it, but or that it's like really a super big issue. Not fully clear on that. But basically it's like this benign tumor in the foot that demineralizes the coffin bone. And so we had that removed and brought him back. And then it was like 8 months of rehab because literally the bone in his foot was exposed. And so we had to like every other day clean out this wound and change the bandage, and he had to be on stall rest. And he was just violent. I mean, he was so angry to be in the stall. And it was around this time that I was like taking him out for a lot of hand walks, and started trick training him to the best of my ability. And by trick training, I mean like grabbing a treat and luring him into position and like hoping. It didn't really work very well, but there are lots of videos online of me doing this. And sorry for the burp. Yeah, he really was like the starting point of that, because when Zoe was on stall rest after her colic surgery, I was like, well, that's what I did with Beau, so that's what I'll do with Zoe while she's on stall rest recovering. And I want to do it right this time, because I was, just a kid with Beau and didn't really know what I was doing. So I want to actually learn how to do it properly this time. And so when I looked into it, then I found positive reinforcement, and the rest is history. So yeah, basically Beau ended up recovering, and we brought him back into work, and I started competing him, and I competed him up through training. And it really just got to a point where I was like, he's not going to go past training. His jumping form, he would always hang his knees. And I have a feeling a lot of that had to do with the equipment that I was using, the saddle, the breastplate. And he just wasn't like super well trained, really. I feel like his training got very rushed. And yeah, there's just so much I would do differently if I had him today. And, that was always one that I was like, I don't really like to live with regrets, but if there was any regret, it was a lot of what happened with Beau, just because he was so much more than just a not a good jumper. And that's what he kind of got labeled as at the time. And I remember getting a lot of comments online of people being like, why does Jill have so many followers? Like, she can't even like win on this horse, because his dressage was always terrible. He just wasn't a good mover, like a pretty mover. He had a very washing machine canter. And again, I think a lot of that was just bad biomechanics and bad tack. And we were really doing the best we could. And we were following the advice of people that, I trusted and thought were leading me best. And that's, I think, the hard part of the sport, is if you don't get in with the right people at the right time, that stay current with information and research, then you sort of just do whatever they tell you. And, when you're new to it, you trust the professionals. And, those were people I trusted my whole career, and I don't fault them at all. They were only doing the best they could with what they knew, and they were trying to do right by me and my horse. But a lot of it ended up getting blamed on Beau, and I think it's really unfortunate. But yeah, so I thought it was super sweet of his owner to message me and let me know that he had passed and sort of give me the details. But it wasn't super detailed, and I didn't really ask. But basically he just got sick, and it happened way faster than they they could have imagined. I don't know if it was an infection or a bacteria or a virus or what. And I don't know that they're really all the way sure, but he just sort of went downhill really fast in a day, and then it was over. So, I mean, the most I can ask for is that he didn't suffer and it wasn't, hard on him. And I am just super grateful that he had people around him that were doing the absolute best they could, trying to help him and fighting for his life and loving him and giving him the softest place to land. That was the biggest thing for me, that they were like, he will have a forever home with us. We do not get rid of our horses. We love them, and it'll be an easy life for him. And that just meant more to me than anything. And I know that they loved him until his last day. And it's heavy to think about. And I remember she texted me, and I had a pretty rough day that day, and, cried it out, and then was like, all right, time to move on, and just really haven't thought about it much since. And that's why I felt a little bit guilty, like even having it on my list. It's been on my list to talk about on the podcast for the past 5 weeks, because I was like, that should be one of the first things I talk about when I come back. But it just, I don't know, part of me, I guess, felt a little bit guilty that I wasn't super emotional about it. But it's also been, I mean, if I sold them in 2018, let's say, I don't even remember when it was. If I sold him in 2018, that's been 6 years. So, no, 5 years. So it's been a really long time since I even saw him. And, his owner was always so sweet, sending me pictures of him and updates and, just checking in and letting me know how he was doing. And I just love her for that. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Part of me was like, at this point, that was her horse. I don't really have much space to be upset about a horse that I haven't been, involved with in 5 years, that I gave up, that I basically said, I don't want anymore because you're not as talented as I need you to be. And there's, I think, a lot of guilt with that. And I know that that's not the truth. And that was, a result of the world I was in at the time, and that I wouldn't do that now. And that it worked out anyway, because he was with people that cared about him and did right by him. But I don't know, it's still hard. I'm sure a lot of you that have sold horses can relate. It's not easy to reconcile that with what you believe now. And yeah, I don't know. I just, thankful for everything that he taught me and pushing me to be a better rider and to, sort of, I don't know. I felt like he gave me the opportunity to promote thoroughbreds. He was my first thoroughbred and made me fall in love with the OTTBs, even though he never raced. It was a little bit stolen valor, but he was trained. He just never got all the way jockey club certified and all that good stuff. He a little bit of a, like I said, stolen valor, but I don't know. He made me fall in love with the breed, and he pushed me, and he made me, I think, the rider that I am today. And I'm very, very, very grateful to him for that. And he made me compassionate, because he was a hard horse to deal with. And I dealt with a lot riding him. A lot of people saying that he wasn't talented, that he was an ugly jumper, he was an ugly mover, that he was never going to be the horse. I remember I went to a clinic and I had an Olympian be like, this horse is too much for you. You need a different ride. And he got on the horse and couldn't make him not go sideways. And I was like, maybe it's not the horse. That was really my first time being like, maybe the professionals are not the end all be all. And maybe when the horse is being disobedient, maybe he's trying to tell us something in the only way he knows how. And I don't know. I think that stuck with me. And I just, again, all I can really say is I'm just forever grateful for him and all that he gave me and the other people in his life. And I hope he's happy wherever he is. And I don't know, man, it's hard to talk about. Like I said, there's a lot of feelings wrapped up in it.
And I try not to be super sad about death, because there was a great life with that. And he left a lot of really, really awesome things behind. And I'd rather celebrate his life than be, constantly mourning the death and focusing on that. It just is unfortunate that his time was cut short and that I cut our time short, or our time together short. And, I don't know. I'm sort of all over the place with it. Like I said, I feel like I avoided a little bit. I've dealt with a lot of horses having to be euthanized in my time being in the industry. And like I say being in the industry, it sounds so pretentious, but like, versus just having one horse and being competitive, and then like actually working on a horse farm and having to make those tough calls with different cases and how hard it really is. I mean, I think in the time I've been podcasting, I made 3 different episodes on 3 different horses that have passed that have been really, really hard. And it's just one of those things. I think after you've dealt with so much of it, you start to be a little bit jaded somewhat and avoidant about it, because it really doesn't get much easier. It just gets more numbing in a way. And I really don't want to have that approach and that like numb to loss. I would rather, feel it. And I feel like I let myself really feel it that day that I found out and was told what happened with Beau. But also like not hold on to that so hard. Like all of those negative feelings, like I'm not married to them. I don't need to carry them, and I don't need to grieve for a certain amount of time to prove how much I cared, and that's another reason that it was not easy to talk about, because it's like, I don't know, grief is weird, and especially in, I feel like Western culture, that, there's all these unspoken rules and judgments to be made about the way someone grieves. So I feel like it was almost best for me to just know and not talk about it. But there was also a large part of me that was like, Beau was my introduction to, Beau gave me my internet career. Like he started Jill and Hearthrob, and then Jill and Beau, and then Jet Eventing, and now Jet EquiTheory and EquiTheory. Like he started all of that with me, and everybody knew him and loved him and celebrated him with me. And he gave me community. He gave me a space to be heard. And he was always a shoulder to cry on, even though usually he was trying to bite me while I was doing so. But like that horse was so special. And I just forever, forever grateful. And yeah, I don't know that there's really all that much to say about it, but if you aren't familiar with Beau, there is a video on my YouTube called Life with Beau. And if you just go to Jet EquiTheory, I'll link that video down below as well. But that was the video that I made sort of as my processing losing him the first time when I sold him, and making this video sort of all the clips I had from start to finish with him of all of our journeys. And it starts with, thankfully I had footage of my very first ride with him, the one where I asked to get off of him. And I don't know, it's just, that video is really special to me. It's also got a Kesha song over it. Animal, the Billboard remix, I believe. And I'm not sure how aware I was at the time, but in watching that video back, one of the very first lines is, I'm in love with who we are, not what we should be. And that is really just the message that I took away from Beau, is that it's, and especially in looking back over it, that a horse's value and the value of a relationship is not on what you think it should be or it could be. It's about loving the partner, whether that's horse, human, whatever, for who they are, and appreciating and cherishing that individual, not tearing them down because of what they should be. And I think that's unfortunately what Beau was a big victim of, was just a lot of things were quote unquote wrong with him. And watching that video back just makes me sad to think that, because there's no part of him that deserved that. You know, he was who he was, and that horse had so much heart, and he gave me every fiber of his being every time. You know, I mean, I competed him so many times, and there's just a reason his name was Hearthrob, I guess. He had a lot of heart, and he was so special, and just so grateful to have had him as a partner and to have gotten to experience that, and had, you know, a horse that was so solid, even though he wasn't. He was. And he took good care of me, and he tried his heart out even when he wasn't the most talented or, you know, the most athletic. He still went out there and did the damn thing, and I just will be forever grateful for that beautiful, beautiful soul that he is. And I'm cutting back in the episode, so it's going to be a little bit of a transition, but I just wanted to add some more thoughts, so it's a little bit off. But I took a break after I mentioned the video and watched it, and oh God, it's just that was our relationship from start to finish. It's from the very first ride to our first show, and it's in black and white because I was artistic, obviously. And then it cuts to us doing training and, you know, all of these clips from clinics and shows, and just him being a badass and being a super cool dude, and just little quirky clips of him and me trying to trick train him, and like, it was just wonderful. And the part that really got me is the end of the video, is it's got like my favorite pictures of us, and woof. This episode is way all over the place. Anyway, I'm gonna cut back into the past episode. Now we're talking about how much I love this Kesha song. Such a good song, and that song always makes me think of him. And it's funny and then that always makes me think of my friend Mary Grace. Always says that every time she hears that song, she thinks of Beau. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard, life and loss. But yeah, I mean, just like to tie it all together, I mean, there's all of the stuff with the acne and the body going through changes and trying to figure out what works best. I mean, it's all the same pattern, right? I mean, the same thing happened with Beau, trying to figure out how to work best by him, do best by him. And at the time I thought that doing right by him meant giving him somebody else to teach all the wonderful things he taught me, and giving somebody else that companionship and that love that I felt from him. And, you know, me carrying that, paying that forward, and appreciating him for that. And yeah, what an episode. All over the place, big time. But I feel like I needed to talk about that. So thank you guys for listening, and check out that video of him, and I don't know, celebrate him with me. But I'm going to go ahead and end this episode. So thank you guys for listening, and I will catch you guys in the next one, which hopefully won't be a week late. But thanks for listening. Bye.